Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SOS Weekly number 2. I'm about a day late on this one. Apologize. Work's been a little crazy. But for today, I'm going to keep this one, try to get this one a little shorter. Just jumping straight in from the first one I talked last episode about coping or handling situations where people insult someone that may have died. Like in my case, it was my mom in middle school. Kids just being insensitive to that fact and how best to handle those situations. So if you missed that, go ahead and watch that. It's the first episode. Today I was going to talk about and again, all of this comes from straight out of the book. So if you're curious, like if this seems random in any way, it all makes sense in context that in that source. But right after my mom died, I was still in middle school, but something that became like a very, very large focus of my life was video games. And I know that sounds lame, and I don't mean that to be like, oh, have a hobby after someone dies. It's really not how I mean it. I mean, have something available to you to fully let yourself be absorbed into. And that could range from anything from people from like writing. Writing's kind of replaced what video games used to be for me now. Reading, like video games is something as simple as that. I know, like as a young boy, that was very attractive to me. Or whatever, any sort of knowledge you're seeking, or any sort of skill, dancing, any sort of like physical pursuit, running, weightlifting, sports, football, anything like that. And I don't mean just like have a hobby, like I was saying. I mean like dedicate your whole fucking life to it, or what feels like it at that moment, like you want to dedicate your entire life to that. And the way that manifested itself for me was I started frequenting a video game store like every day right after school. I'd go for 5 or 6 hours till they closed, and I became like very close friends to the owners, and they had a circle of older gentlemen that would visit. It sounds kind of weird, like a bunch of old guys hanging out with this young kid. But we all had a common interest, which was video games and technology at the time. And I learned a tremendous amount from them. They were they're not like boring people by any means. They're very unique and strange and kind of fucked up in a lot of ways. But they taught me a lot, which was like the important thing. I talk about Clooney in the book. Clooney had like a profound impact on me. One, because he was so sharp intelligently, and he was very aggressive though, which like as a young guy, like masculine figures like that, you enjoy that. Like there's something to be gained from their presence, like the way they conduct themselves. Like not only was he was intelligent, physically he had he had a presence to him. I think everybody's met someone who like they walk in a room and you notice it, and he had that. His energy, his demeanors were like very influencing on me, and I credit him still with like anybody who ever compliments me and says like they feel like I'm well spoken or anything like that. I give him a tremendous amount of credit for that, because when I was 12, 13 years old, he was forcing me to speak in a very articulate manner. He was throwing a lot of like off the wall ideas at me, and things are very controversial. Like talked to him a lot about like violence, sex, and he had like a very interesting past. He had done some things when he was younger that he wasn't particularly proud of, but he had learned a lot from, which is like the largest reason I admired him, was because he had come from such a rough start, and he had made something like so impressive of himself, like starting his own business, making a lot of money doing that, starting a successful family. As far as I know now, he's had a child, and he's has a successful relationship with his wife, and we've kind of fallen on a touch. Unfortunately, it's just kind of how life goes. The age gap was kind of a little too hard to sustain, and all the moving we've all done and that sort of thing. But so anyways, getting back to the video games, it got to the point where I would hang out the store, play Halo 2. Halo 2 is my game of choice. Like honestly, I could have probably become a professional Halo 2 player at that time. I was one of the very earliest adopters of Xbox Live when it was becoming a thing, and so I played online against the largest pool of players available. I was like ranked 49 and 50 if anyone was familiar with that ranking system. So like I was very good at Halo 2. Like I won 3 local tournaments in a row. They were small, but I mean it was certainly more than what 99% of everybody else was doing. I think if I had been older and I had the ability to travel, I could have like actually pursued video games like professionally for a moment. And that went on for a couple of years, 2 years, I'd say 2 to 3 years. And I just constantly, I would come either playing 6 hours a day at the game store, or if they were closed or I couldn't go there because I had homework or whatever situation was happening, I would be at home playing Xbox Live for 6 to 9 hours a day, every day, never stopped. And my brother's friends, and he would like to play with me, so that was always a fun source of challenge and whatnot. And it literally got to the point where I developed my skills, and that's really why I'm still good at video games to this day. I think it's because I have an understanding of them from having that so ingrained in me from a young age, just like the way you behave in them and how you control that sort of space in your mind and like through the controllers and whatnot. And I know and then later on in my life, it became weightlifting. That's why I became like such an adept coach, and I like learned all this about exercise science, the body, anatomy, and like how to coach people and like connect with them and like get them to do what I want them to do physically and communicate. Really, coaching is just communication at the most basic form. Is getting them to like manipulate their bodies with your words, essentially. And I took a great interest in that. And then it became, instead of video games, I was always gaming. I've always been a gamer, always will be. But then I started lifting more, and that became my release. So whatever you have to do, I honestly don't care what it is. And I don't mean that to say, like, sound harsh, but I mean whatever, like, you're remotely interested in, do not feel bad. Like, if it gets to the point where you'd rather stay in and read, play video games, whatever your choice to, like, put all this energy into, don't ever feel bad if it stops you from, like, you know, honestly, like, there's days when I wouldn't go to school because I was so torn up that I just wanted to sit at home, play video games when I was dealing with things back then. And, like, that's okay. You know, explain to your parents or whoever's still around who's in charge of you that, like, sometimes you need that mental decompression. I mean, you're far better off taking that day off of school or whatever you're going through of work and, like, having a chance to recoup yourself than forcing yourself into an environment where you're just going to either fail or not perform and have, like, all this other baggage you have to deal with around with, like, coworkers or students and have that come out there. And there's something to be said for having, like, breakdowns in public too, which, like, I've had, and I'm sure most of you have had as well. And there's a way to, like, handle those and enjoy those in a certain aspect. And similar to, like, flashbacks, I feel like when you think about acid flashbacks, you hear people describe those, but sometimes, like, this overwhelming grief, even years later, can come back and attack you. It's very, like, it catches you off guard. It's very interesting, like, how those moments. But really, like, choose something, like, find what you love and let it kill you. Whether that be singing, music, like I said, any of these hobbies or things that you take a great interest in. Lately, I've picked up dancing. Honestly, I started breakdancing. I have a good friend at the gym that I work at who is an incredibly good breakdancer. I've always been curious, and he offered to teach me. So I'm learning how to do that, and I'm into this dancing now, dancing and shuffling. So, you know, even if something you're like, oh, I'd never try that. I love how I said this video is gonna be short. I totally lied. Even if it's something you never dreamt you might try, like maybe you're not very good with outdoorsy things like hunting or camping or fishing, maybe try that if it's ever interested you. You've just been nervous because you didn't know how. Make a fucking fool out of yourself. Sometimes you have to. If it's something that you really want to try, you just have no clue how to go about it and no one's really willing to help you. Sometimes you just have to dive in on your own and see where you end up. And the surprising thing is, after you dive in a few times, you're going to know more than the most people around you, and they're going to be turning to you to, like, advice or to how to help them get started in this, like, new hobby or interest that you have. It's happened with me with lifting, gaming, writing. All of a sudden, you take the forefront. You lead yourself on this journey through developing this ability or this craft, and all of a sudden people are, like, very impressed and attracted to what you're doing, and all of a sudden they want to learn or hear about what you're doing. And that's one of the most rewarding parts of it. So find what you love and let it kill you. That's the message today. So, and if you have any other suggestions for things that have helped you with, like, coping, some sort of, like, outlet, whatever that might be, leave a comment, hit me up. I had actually got a message from someone who recently read the book. I'm not going to name names, but she had, like, a very nice message to send me. It was like, it was, like, overwhelming at some point. So, like, I appreciate, like, people reaching out. Hit me up if you need any advice or comments, and have a great day, guys. I'm gonna, like I said, once a week. I'm a day late, but we'll keep getting these in there. So stay tuned for episode 3 next week. Have a good one, guys. Peace.